The cinema washcloth is a really thick, absorbent and slightly scrubby cloth. It has a great textured surface, so it's really nice to use, and that textured surface also means it's really great for when you want to do some crochet but you're not able to look down at it, or it's dark, or perhaps you don't have your close work glasses with you. That's why it's called the cinema washcloth. It's my go-to project when I take my children to see a film, so I hope you'll also enjoy making it. Let's see how it's done. To make the cinema washcloth, you're going to want some Aran or worsted weight cotton yarn or any kind of dishcloth yarn. A good example might be Drops Paris, Lily's Sugar and Cream, or this Lion Brand Pima cotton. It's great for using up yarn scraps, and then any hook that you would normally use for that kind of yarn. Usually it will be a 4.5 or US 7 or a 5mm or US H hook. I'm going to be using the Drops Paris, this kind of greyish pink, as the main colour, and then I'll be using the Lion Brand Pima cotton as the contrast colour. We'll start by working 27 chains with the main colour yarn. You don't need to leave a particularly long tail. So there's my slip knot to start, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 25, 26, 27. Then we're going to work into the 4th chain from the hook. I like to work into the back bump, but you can work in your usual way. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is the one I'll be working into. I'm going to work a US double crochet or UK treble into this chain and all the other chains to the end. "24 and 25. And take care not to work into the slip knot at the end. So that's the first row complete. We're now going to turn it, and here, using the same colour, we'll work 2 chains, 1 and 2. So the stitches that we want to work are front post stitches and back post stitches alternately, and we're going to work UK trebles or US doubles by wrapping the yarn once around the hook for each of those. So to work the front post stitch, we're going to work around the post of the stitch instead of into its head, and we are going to enter from the front, go behind and bring the hook back to the front. Bring the yarn around, pull up a loop, and then we'll pull it through 2 loops on the hook once and twice, and that makes our raised stitch there. Now we're going to work the back post stitch. So wrap the yarn once around the hook, and this time we're going to place the hook around the post from the back, across the front and back through to the back. Pull up a loop of yarn and pull it through 2 loops on the hook twice. So front post stitch, then a back post stitch. And we'll do that all the way along to the end until we have just the last stitch remaining. The last stitch is those chains, the 3 chains that we skipped at the beginning of the row. They're acting as our first stitch of that 25 stitch row. So now we're at the last stitch of the row. We're going to work into that top chain of the 3 chains here, and we're going to work a UK half treble or a US half double crochet, wrapping the yarn once around the hook and placing it through and drawing up a loop. But once we've drawn up that loop, we now need to switch colour, ready for the contrast colour row. And it's best to do this by pulling the yarn through on the previous stitch. So this is our last stitch of the main colour, and I'm getting the contrast colour ready, and I'm going to pull that through all of the loops on the hook And you can see it doesn't really show in this round here, but it means that we'll start the next round perfectly with the new colour. So we're going to turn again, we're going to work 2 chains, and now we'll be doing the same stitches, but we'll be doing them in the opposite order. So instead of starting with a front post treble, we'll start with a back post treble, because we can see that this one looks like a back post treble here, and the one next to it looks like a front post treble. So let's wrap the yarn once around the hook and work a back post UK treble or US double crochet, coming in from the back around the post and returning to the back to bring up a loop of yarn, and then pulling it through 2 loops on the hook twice, and then our next stitch will be a front post stitch. So wrap the yarn once again, and this time enter from the front, bring the hook through from the back, pull up a loop of yarn and through 2 loops twice, and continue to work those stitches right across until you come to the last stitch, which again is your turning chain. And so here you can see we've ended our row with a back post stitch, unlike the previous row where we ended with a front post stitch from the other side, and you will always start with the same stitch as you started with. And now we have 2 chains here acting as our first half treble or half double, and we're going to make another UK half treble or US half double in the top one. And then we can turn and work 2 chains to act as our first stitch, and then we're going to work a front post treble or front post double crochet if you're using US terms, followed by a back post UK treble, US double, and continue all the way across to the last stitch. And so here we finished up with a front post stitch, and we're going to work a UK half treble or US half double in the top of the 2 chains. But again, we're going to switch the colour here. So after pulling up our loop, we're going to find the main colour again, and we're going to gently pull this up, making sure it's not too tight. And remembering we will be working a border, so it doesn't matter if there's a loop. However, you can cut it if you prefer to cut it. It's absolutely fine. Hold it while you pull it through, and again, just double check it's not going to scrunch that up. If I pulled that too tight, it will curve the corner like this. So we want to have that flowing loosely behind, and then we're going to work 2 chains as we turn in the main colour, and you can see that thread is running up there, but it will be covered with the border yarn. And so again, we'll be doing exactly those same 2 rows, working first of all starting and finishing with a back post stitch, and then on the next row we'll be starting and finishing with a front post stitch. So one of the things I really like about this cloth is how easy it is to feel the pattern. You can actually feel where the next back post stitch is and where your hook should go with your fingers, and pull up the yarn there really completely without looking at it, and that for me makes it a great choice for when I'm doing other things. Similarly, you can feel the front post stitch and slide your hook in behind it, and with your finger make sure you've gone into the right area and pull the yarn around in the right way completely without looking at it. And so for me, that makes it a great choice for when I want to do something else while I'm crocheting. If I'm going to be chatting to somebody and want to keep eye contact, if I want to go to the cinema and it'll be dark, I won't be able to see what I'm working on, or if I'm going to be watching a TV program that really relies on me looking at it, or watching the children in the park, whatever I'm going to be doing, I can do that without having to look down at my crochet so much. Even when you get to the end there, you can kind of feel the gaps between the final stitch. The colour change is a little bit trickier, but with some practice you can manage that too. And on that final stitch, we do want to switch to the contrast colour ready for our next row. So now we have our pattern repeat set. We'll be able to work 2 more repeats of the contrast colour and the main colour. And when we've completed that, we'll be ready to work our edging. So having completed 2 more repeats of the stitch pattern, we now have 4 bands of main colour and 3 bands of the contrast colour. We want to work the edging now, and we don't want to fasten off either the main colour or the contrast colour at this point, but we do want to take a look at where those strands are, because we need to cover them up as well as working our edging around the row end stitches here. So we're going to work 1 chain to start with, and that just gives us a little bit of height so that we don't cinch our corner in. And then we're going to work 2 stitches around each of these row end stitches of the first 2 rows. So we're going to work UK double crochets or US single crochets, and we're going to work them right around the stitch, treating it as if it was a chain space, not into the side of the stitch. 1, 2 UK double crochets or US single crochets, and we'll do this into each of those 2 rows. 1, 2. So we're going to work 1 stitch into each of the remaining row end stitches until we reach the last 2 in the main colour. And again, we're going to work UK double crochets or US single crochets, and we're going to work right around the stitch as if it were a chain space. And we're also going to catch in the yarn that we carried along the sides of the row end stitches when we changed colour. So now I've come to my last 2 row ends, and I'm going to work 2 stitches into each of those. And at this point I can also start to hide the yarn tail from where I started using the contrast colour, or I could weave it in later. So there's 1 stitch, again UK double or US single crochets, and finally into this one here. So I've completed the main colour border on this edge, and now I'm going to turn to work along my foundation chain. So I need to work 2 chains here to rise up to the height of this row. And again, as I work along, I'm going to hide that yarn tail here. Now my instructions are to work into each of the stitches except for the row end stitch that we've already worked around, and alternate back post stitches. So I will work into this back post stitch, I won't into this, I will in this, I won't in this, and I will work into all of the front post stitches. Now the reason for this is that the rib stitch here we've created is quite stretchy. It kind of clings in a little bit compared to how many stitches there are if it was spread out flat. So we've skipped the row end stitch. We are going to work into the front post stitch. That would be our first stitch, and here we're going to work UK half trebles or US half doubles. We'll work into the first back post stitch. We'll work into the next stitch because that's a front post stitch. It's a little bit tight. I think I did my foundation chains a little bit tight. This back post stitch will miss because we worked into the last one. So we'll work into the next front post stitch. We'll work into the next back post. Next front post. And then we're going to skip this back post, and we'll do that all the way along to the end. And you can see that keeps our ribbed stitches sitting nicely forward. If I had worked into every stitch, it would spread out and the ribbed stitches would actually end up going slightly flat and then cinching in the middle, so your cloth would end up with a little bit of a waist like that. This matches their size perfectly. So I'm going to do that until I've reached the end of the side. And then the last stitch is actually the row end stitch, and in this case we're told to skip the row end stitches. So I am going to work 2 chains to get back to where we were before, and then I'm going to repeat exactly what we did starting from here. 2 stitches, 2 stitches, 1 stitch, 2 stitches, 2 stitches, skip the row end stitches and work into all the front posts and every other back post stitch. So I'm going to do exactly the same now as I go around the second half of the square. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. So again, when we get to this corner, we're going to skip our row end stitch, which you can see we've already worked around. Work 2 more chains, and then we're going to slip stitch in that first double crochet or single crochet if you're using US terms of the round. And we've now finished the main colour. Here we go, let's trim the yarn. And this end we can hide in later on, we can weave that in, and we're now going to work with the contrast colour. This is the second row now of our edging. So we need to pull the contrast colour through the nearest edging stitch, which I think is this one, under the head in the normal way. We're not working around the posts this time like that, we're just going to put it through the head of the stitch. And then we're going to slip stitch in each edging stitch to the corner. Now I find that my slip stitch is nice and loose and even, but sometimes people find that they work this a little bit too tightly, and that may lead to the fabric puckering. So if you want to use a larger hook to make sure that you don't cause the fabric to pucker, that's a great idea for people who work their slip stitches a little bit too tight. Otherwise, just remain conscious of keeping your hands loose. One thing I do if I find that my slip stitch is going a little bit tight is I reduce the tension on my yarn, and for me I can normally have it 2 wraps round, so I could do it with just 1. When we reach the corner chain space here, we've got a 2 chain space, we're going to work a UK double crochet or a US single crochet, 2 chains and another UK double crochet or US single crochet, and that should give us a nice sharp corner there. Then we're going to continue working in each edging stitch here as well. So again, through the head of the stitch, slip stitch all the way around. So this is where we work 2 chains for the corner, and again we're going to work a stitch and then a chain space, and to make the hanging loop I'm going to just work that until it's as long as I want it. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm going to work another 4 chains for down the other side, and then I'll work my other UK double crochet or US single crochet in that corner, and there's my hanging loop. And so again, working around the rest of the cloth in all the edging stitches on all 4 sides, and working a stitch, 2 chains and a stitch in each of the corner 2 chain spaces. So having completed our last corner, I'm working back towards where I started, and I'm going to stop here and bring the yarn through and trim it off, and my next stitch in that final space is going to help make a more even finish for the cloth, so it won't be really obvious where the edging started and finished, and it should keep the same tension as the rest of the cloth. Instead of working straight into that space there, I'm going to work underneath both strands of the first chain. I'm going to work back through the chain the yarn came out of and only then am I going to work through that side stitch. And you can see that gives a lovely finish there. You can easily hide the ends in the edging stitches in the first round of the edging. And with cotton yarn, I like to work through in one direction, miss the first stitch I went under, and then go back in the other direction as well to make it less likely to unravel, where the yarn is not as sticky as perhaps a woolen yarn would be. I hope you've enjoyed making the cinema washcloth, and I hope it will be a great cloth for you to make whenever you are not able to give too much attention or to look at your work. And I also hope that maybe you'll share your cloths with me if you make them on Ravelry or on your social media, and I look forward to seeing them. Thank you.